And I feel like we owe it to Rudy Giuliani to do this laptop, his what is effectively the last of the great tries. Go after him, Rudy. Miranda Devine's going to be there to help you. She's going to hold on. I have to move this over. It never pass up an opportunity to brutalize an addict who's coming clean about his life. Right, Rudy? That's right. Okay, so I haven't watched this one, and no one needs to, but we're going to, because here we go. Because I did all these episodes about it, and apparently we'll see if he feels vindicated on this one. Obviously, 8,000 views, 673 rumbles. He's not batting 1,000 on these videos. I mean, it is Rumble after all, but even then he was sitting earlier in this business. He was hitting 10K, something like that. But yeah, glory hole. All right, so let's see. It's brutal. Let's see the brutal Biden crime family that is just they're the worst. They're the Gaudis of the Sopranos, of the Godfathers, of the triad of the Russian mob of all time. That lives in kind of upper middle class digs.
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm...
Why is this asshole always surprised by the title of his own goddamn show? What is happening? What? Rudy, why are you surprised at your own show? Welcome to this is Rudy Giuliani, and this is what in the world?
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with you with Rudy's Common Sense. This episode, we're going to deal with if they're new revelations by Hunter Biden that emerged from his book and his interview. And we're going to talk to someone who's become quite an expert on it. And like so many other subjects, she has written very authoritatively, very in depth about this. So
yeah, she's an authority on reading a book that's been written about things.
It's a real honor to talk to her and interview.
Get on with it.
Miranda Devine, who is a columnist,
dear Lord,
for the New York Post, and are you a contributor on Fox? You're on there so often. It seems like you should have your own show.
Yeah, I'm a contributor there.
So
yeah, I'm a contributor there.
Miranda, let's have.
Wait a minute. Did I detect an Australian accent?
You had a chance to read the book, have you, or just excerpts of it?
Yeah, good morning there. Yes, I've read the whole book. I got it a couple of days early, and it's not very hard to get through because there's really not a lot there. I mean, that because
I know
you were the one who tipped me off to the laptop last year, that I've been right through the laptop. And when you compare the reality of his life through that period to the sort of
when you look at an addict's life from a judgmental point of view from the outside, it's very different from the way they look at it as they try to move from addiction to healing to getting their life back together, because they're a lot more charitable than you're apt to be, considering that it's your business to shit on his whole family.
Self-hagiography that he's written in his memoir, Beautiful Things, they're chalk and cheese. The only thing he's
chalk and cheese, Rudy doesn't know what you're talking about,
open about to any extent is his crack addiction, and that's problematic in itself.
What, being open about it? Yeah, it's when addicts are truthful about their addictions, I mean, that's really the first red flag.
Well, how far back does he say he became an addict? Does he go back to his childhood or his time in the military? When does he actually...
When does he cop to the fact that he was on drugs?
Does he locate a time when he started?
Yeah, he says that when he was 8 years old, he was in Delaware. His father had just won re-election to the Senate, and he sneaked a glass of champagne under a table and drank the whole thing during a sort of a post-election party that his parents were having.
Not champagne.
at the local school. So, and then he said
I mean, that's really many of us know that champagne is a gateway drug to crack whores.
that a few years later he went and had a sleepover at a friend's place, and they got drunk. And then he
A few years later, like when he's 15 or when he's 10.
sort of doesn't mention much else about his teenage years, other than sort of casually mentioning that at the
Yeah, they don't, Rudy, they don't talk about his teenage years much, so put your pants back on.
age of 18, he was picked up by the police for snorting cocaine with a couple of friends in a parked car outside a party. So he was well into the hard stuff by his teenage years.
I assume he never got arrested for that.
The police actually came and knocked on the door. I think he said they cuffed him, but no, he had some sort of a
Excuse me, can you step out? Does that smell like cocaine to you, Bob?
legal issue, but it was expunged from his record, I presume, because he was so young. I'm not sure we can read anything untoward in that, but we do know that in Delaware,
Try.
Joe
Why pass it
Biden
up? Honestly, why pass it up?
has a lot of pull with law enforcement and everybody else. The Bidens run Delaware.
So
It is. I mean, it is the Biden state.
So the reason I ask is I don't want to delve into his weaknesses or
Yes, you do. You just did.
frailties. Everyone has problems and issues, and drug addiction is a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
The difference here is we have drug addiction involving a man who earned millions and millions of dollars.
That's never happened before. No one who's ever made millions of dollars has done drugs. There are no billionaires that are currently on drugs like cocaine. This asshole was the mayor of New York. Have you ever been to Wall Street? Made millions and cocaine? When did that shit start? It's like the Reese's Cups of economics.
It would be yet another reason why they wouldn't
Why
be paying him, they'd be paying somebody else.
Why? You don't think businessmen coked up do deals together? Are you out of your mind? Seriously. This isn't this literally like, hey man, I noticed you're doing blow or whatever. I don't really trust you, but here's a bunch of money because your dad's sweet.
When you look at his history of drug addiction from the hard drive and the other investigating I've done is beyond the norm. I don't know if there's normal drug addiction.
Yeah, run-of-the-mill drug addiction, like low rent.
But he's a high-level drug user, let's put it that way. I mean, he uses drugs, it seems, almost every year that I investigated him, and going in and out of rehabilitation. So it puts another issue there about why would somebody pay him $3 million?
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you guys know this, but Robert Downey Jr., his dad, Robert Downey, was actually paid for all the Avengers movies. Because Robert Downey Jr. obviously used a lot of drugs during a period of time. And so instead of, paying him for the work, they were like, we'll put him in the movie. But it's really just a way of getting money to Robert Downey. Okay. I don't even know why this needs to be an aside. Hold on. Do we just do, how about that? This kind of, here's a good one. Why bankers and cocaine are the best of friends. How cocaine crushed my trading skills. 12 drugs you're likely to find in a trader's desk. Why do some Wall Street bankers use cocaine? Cocaine in finance? Is cocaine still popular on Wall Street? What an article. Seriously. Rudy, the fuck are you talking about, man? Oh, these are wrong people. Sorry. Yeah.
Or someone pay him $8 million or someone pay him anything.
Yeah. Why would they pay him $2, much less $5? I mean, how much is crack these days?
So it's pretty clearly established that he's addicted to drugs.
He's an addict. He's an admitted addict. Unlike your buddy Trump and his kids, who clearly do benzos and meth and coke and Adderall and crush Sudafed and snort that because it's a cheapo meth.
Well, look, the whole memoir is about his drug journey.
It's like a big admission of something. I don't know why you don't just march him into the fucking bobbies and say, like, exhibit fucking A, arrest this guy, read his book. He's admitted to cocaine.
And what's beautiful about
it? Well, I mean, I think the beautiful thing about it from his point of view is, A, he got $2 million reportedly in an advance, and B, he thinks that this is a way of inoculating himself and his family from the very damaging contents of the laptop.
No, I think the beautiful things he's talking about is like healing and stuff. You wouldn't know shit about that.
As much as says that. He boasted yesterday in a CBS interview, one of many that he's doing in
to promote the book.
Promoting the book is.
Oh yeah, that's that people do that.
That when he, back in 2019, I don't know if you remember, but he gave a very candid interview to The New Yorker.
It's just gross how candid he is.
He says in the book that he would lie in bed in his motel room talking to the author of that article while smoking crack. And when it came out, there was a real shock, and people said, well, why would he do that to his father, who's only just launched his presidential bid for 2020? And this was only, the New Yorker article was only a few months after he'd abandoned his laptop at the MacBook repair shop in Delaware, which in itself was only 8 days after Joe Biden actually formally announced he was running for president. So the New Yorker article looked like...
It's weird that he's like being all open.
A real slap in the face to his father, very damaging.
Apparently not. His dad is president.
In fact, according to Hunter yesterday on the CBS interview, he was congratulating himself. He said that he was basically smarter than any of Joe Biden's professional media advisors, because he knew that by giving that interview and being candid about his drug use, that he was going to inoculate his father and the campaign from any sort of dirt that might be brought up about his crack addiction.
Yeah, nobody jumps the lie and tells the truth. Nobody does that. Honestly, their biggest argument right now is that he's being honest. That seems to be...
So in other words, if he could establish he's a crack addict, which he is, the sympathy from the left would be so great that he could...
Yeah, because there's no sympathy for addicts on the right. Is that what you're saying, Rudy? So, fuck addicts? Honestly, from Rudy Giuliani's point of view, at this point, should we just move past the fact that all the people who've died of opioid overdoses in the last 6 years had it coming, right, Rudy? I mean, obviously us bleeding heart liberals feel bad for them, but every time an opioid addict dies, a Giuliani gets his wings.
He could pay bribes, take bribes, illegally possess weapons, make false statements on federal forms. He could basically do all these things that the hard drive demonstrates that he did, beyond any doubt. And the liberal left would just swoon and say, poor Hunter, he's just a poor little thing.
Yeah, it's weird that your buddies do all that, but they weren't addicted at the time. They just did it because they thought they could get away with it.
Now, does anyone ever ask Joe the question, isn't it a fact that Hunter used a lot more drugs than thousands of people that went to jail as a result of his 1994 crime bill, and most of them African-American?
Isn't it, I guess the same question would apply to Trump's legal issues. I mean, obviously, people who've ripped off a corner store are in jail for 10, 20, 30 years, and Trump does the same thing to a cancer charity, for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he gets to, like pretend he added a wing to a hospital.
Well, yeah, exactly. But
Yeah, totally,
Joe Biden has a very pat and actually it's been very successful response. He gets rave reviews from the establishment media every time he uses it. He used it to great effect in that debate against Donald Trump when he said,
That's that. But in all fairness, that could be true of every sentence Biden said during the debate.
he looked down the barrel of the camera and he said, like a lot of you out there, you Americans, my son has an addiction problem, and I'm so proud of him because he's beaten it. And I mean, it is true. A lot of people do have addiction problems.
Yeah. So, but how dare he? Right? How dare he address that Americans have addiction problems? Recognize that his son has one. Love his son after this. I mean, why don't you just shoot your kid?
And everyone has sympathy for them, but
rightly so.
This is not a story simply about addiction. This is the story of the son of the president, the son of the former vice president, who was monetizing his father's name, who had an influence peddling business that was, rampant throughout the world, that Joe Biden himself, as we see from the material on the laptop, was involved in. He was aware of it, and he was...
No, he wasn't.
Actively involved, and it also involved...
Yeah, no, Rudy says he gets 50% of the take of what, $1.2 billion that I mean, I guess that's what he bought Delaware with. I mean, you can't own all of Delaware for, it can't be cheap. Is he making payments?
The members of the family, particularly Uncle Jim, Joe Biden's younger brother, who is sort of a mentor of Hunter.
I mean, we've all heard, this is basically Rudy's show with an Australian accent. We've all heard this shit before.
In this family influence peddling business. And
influence peddling business. I'm not, honest to God, I have to be honest. From her, the way she's talking, I can't tell whether she's alleging that Biden is using Hunter to influence the people that he's in business with, or if people are buying into Biden, which is Rudy's assessment, into Hunter to get Joe to do certain things. The problem they always have is there's no sign that they ever got anything, that there was a quo for the quid.
And, it's not just that they're raking in lots of money in this very untoward way. It's also the fact who they're getting it from.
Yeah, who are they getting
Chiefly from? China, which means that,
not chiefly China. I thought the problem was Ukraine.
You can only assume that Joe Biden as president is compromised, that the Chinese...
Yeah, they've got him. I mean, he's probably got a secret bank account with like $17 million. Well, not 17, obviously. Trump withdrew 15 million from that account. I mean, wait, what?
Have something on them because they have paid them so much money and they didn't do that for free. And it's the same with Ukraine.
They invested it. China made money on the deal. Look, this is... I don't doubt that like bribes occur in politics and that kind of stuff, but the bribe is usually the thing into itself. That I'll give you this money like Trump's loans, like selling a property for $90 million you bought for 12 that isn't worth it and that kind of stuff, or getting a loan you never have to pay back. And there's nothing came in return because you did some behavior that they effectively paid for. But the investment into Rosemont Seneca by the Chinese bank that was 4 years before Hunter joined it made money. They made money. There was no extra to it. It was an investment scheme.
Ukraine, as you know,
Burisma is a solid company now. Before, it's weird. Before they have a crack addict on their board, they're shitting money and they're going down the tubes, and they're one of the most corrupt energy companies in Europe, and now they're a functioning company.
Burisma, which was paying Hunter Biden $83,000 a month from early 2014, April 2014, until just after his father left office as vice president, and then they cut his pay by in half because he was no longer as useful to them, which was pretty obvious why they had hired him. But Burisma
But he become more useful to the Moscow mayor's wife after that, because that happened
got
after.
their money's worth because Joe Biden went in to Ukraine, threw his weight around, he's boasted about it, and demanded that if they were going to get US aid, that they had to sack the very prosecutor who was...
There was no investigation. We've already been through this shit before. And the guy they sacked was a Russian sock puppet. He's now under the protection of Vladimir Putin. The EU, the World Trade Organization, and the entirety of the Obama administration and all of Congress wanted that guy out. He bragged because of his effectiveness at talking this guy into it, not because it was his idea.
Who was investigating Burisma, which was a corrupt energy company in Ukraine. And that...
When was that? When was that? Was it before 2014? That's weird.
Prosecutor was...
But if Hunter didn't join until 2014, and the company didn't start cleaning up its act until 2014, then how does it
fired? And so it was mission accomplished. It was great money well spent by Burisma.
Mykola Zlochevsky, who ran Burisma and is a major figure in Ukraine organized crime, a Ukraine oligarch, a man who stole $5 billion and made his money by being
who left the country right after Hunter Biden joined the board and didn't return until after he left.
Government minister, giving himself the best leases for 5 years. I mean, he could be, it's hard to say the crookedest man in Ukraine. You have about 20 people that would vie for that title, but he's right up there.
Well, yeah, you're not currently there.
Doesn't it occur to you, Miranda, that all this sympathy for Hunter, maybe that's appropriate, but what?
Maybe?
What's a father doing involving a son who has this terrible affliction from the time he's 8 years old?
This terrible affliction from the time he's 8 years old. Hunter Biden, champagne addict.
With some of the crookedest people in the world. Zlochevsky, the wife of the mayor of Moscow.
Who's not in Ukraine.
She's quite a character.
Is she?
She might have been involved in deposing her own husband.
Might have? As the most corrupt man in Moscow?
As mayor, and became very close to Putin.
You were for the removal of that mayor.
So this is really one of the nicer people to introduce a weak drug addict to. Then in...
Wait a minute. Don Jr. met him?
In China, just 2 years ago, they went into business with 3 Chinese spies, members of the Chinese Communist Party. That's the deal where they were going to get $10 million a year. And there's the 10% for for the big guy. So let's get to the...
They were going to get $10 million from these guys to invest. Not 10 million bucks. 10 million to invest. They expected it back.
Let's get to the laptop. He sort of admits it's his laptop, but he doesn't. He said it absolutely could
have been stolen.
But he doesn't remember missing it. Now, how is that possible since he was missing another one too?
Has anybody got a new laptop? You've gotten 3 laptops in the last 15 years? Is one of them in the garage? Would you know if it went missing? Did you throw it out? Is it still around? Seriously.
The other one was seized by the FBI in Boston from Dr. Abelow. And
oh yeah, let's go back to that story. It was seized by the FBI from Dr. Abelow. Who's Dr. Abelow?
The FBI gave it back to them.
Oh yeah, why did Dr. Abelow? Who the heck is Dr. Abelow? That name sounds familiar. Let's see, Fox News, Abelow. There's a guy. He's friends with Rudy. I know Rudy's close friends with. Who's the guy? Oh yeah. What it took for a Fox News psychiatrist to finally lose his license. Keith Abelow was a popular fixture on the cable channel until 2017 and a high-profile therapist. He left a trail of vulnerable female patients who claim he abused them. Late in 2009, a 20-year-old woman not long out of graduate school found herself in a stressful job at a Bronx hospital and decided it would be useful to talk to someone. Searching online, she came across the name of a psychiatrist, Keith Ablow. Dr. Ablow was familiar to her from his writing, both his journalism and best-selling thrillers. He turned out Denial, Projection, Compulsion, Murder, Suicide. She had read all of those, as well as Psychopath, a book about a psychiatrist who prods the interior lives of strangers only to kill them. Because that's the shrink you want to go see. What? Baroquely obscuring the distinction between patient and victim. The woman, who was asked not to be identified only by her confirmation name Monique, found Dr. Ablow just as his media star was rising. That year, Roger Ailes hired him as a regular contributor to Fox News. Why would he do that? Why would you hire a psychiatrist to go on the air who wrote books about a shrink who wrote a book about murdering his patients? Why that guy? I'm sorry, are there shrinks in New York that aren't telegenic or something? Presiding over viewer segments like Normal or Nuts. Ablow offered counseling in the conventional sense. He also conducted life coaching via email. Good times. Over the next year and a half, he was impressed to her, and so he made a fire trip for her first visit. Over the next year and a half, Monique saw Dr. Ablow 2 or 3 times a week at the reduced rate of $350 an hour. During this time, she found herself coming unwound. Her anxiety about work did not recede. On the contrary, she felt daddled and scared. Not only failed to help her, he left her more damaged than she already was. Frequent texts and emails, intimate revelations about his own life were in the service of her treatment, well within the standard psychiatric discovered. Take years. Other patients came forward. The case represents a core challenge in psychological treatment. By the time Monique left care, her new marriage had fallen apart, and she developed a dependency on Valium, Xanax, and Adderall. Why would Ablow be doling out Adderall, right? And then magically end up on Fox, the pro-Trump network. What is that all about? Let's see. As we spoke to, Monique's caution gave way to fluid emotional narrative. It's easy to imagine her on the side of conversations that played hundreds of times. She was, in fact, a therapist herself. Ablow's license was suspended in Massachusetts after an investigation determined that his continued practice was a threat to health, safety, and welfare of the public. This is Rudy's character witness in this circumstance, Dr. Ablow. Ablow. Rudy, why are you mispronouncing this guy's name on purpose so that people will type in Dr. Ablow and never find it?
At the request of Hunter's lawyer, because it sounds like the FBI is working for them.
Yeah, the FBI is working for them. Yeah, because the FBI would never, when they find a shrink in possession of the private materials of his patients who've been busted for sexually harassing, assaulting, and drugging them, why would they return personal items to the victims? That's weird.
In this particular case, the merchant kept the laptop. But
okay, so he's a thief.
This isn't the only laptop that was missing.
So basically a couple of them were stolen, is what you're saying.
So how could he not realize when he got sober and he had to use his laptop again, it wasn't there?
Where's your old iPad, Rudy? Sometimes you have 2. Occasionally you have 1. Where's the other one? Where is it? Where's your honest to God? Where's Rudy's? That's got to be his 3rd iPad at least. Where's the other one? Did you give it to somebody as a gift? Where is it, Rudy? What's still on it? Is it still hooked up to the cloud? If somebody, because it's now they use facial recognition or you use the thumbprint, but the early one, your first iPad, Rudy, probably still hooked up to your iCloud accounts, probably updating if it's hooked up to power anywhere, or would in a couple seconds. And if they've worked out what your password is, they'd have access to all the stuff you have now, Rudy. Where is it?
It makes no sense. He has to be lying about that.
Why does he have to be lying about that? I mean, obviously, Ablow's a thief. You know Ablow. He worked at Fox. You guys coordinated to steal his old laptop. So what did he do? Bring Hunter over, give him a Xanax to have him calm down, and he fell asleep on the chair, and you just did I bring a laptop with me? No. You just had your jacket. Here you go. Bye.
Yes, and it's pretty
Well, yeah, sure.
obvious when you look at him that he's lying.
Why? Why? I mean, I know you want him to be lying. I know you need him to be lying.
But he
But you believe Dr. Abloh. That's my problem.
as an addict, I guess, you know from the laptop how many lies he tells to his family. It's just second nature to him.
Yeah, addicts. Basically, lying is the gateway drug. Thank you, Jan.
And
And Benny Loco does indeed rock.
as you know better than anybody, Rudy, the laptop, there is so many receipts to demonstrate that the laptop belongs to him. And one of those things is something you pointed out yesterday, which is that Hunter's lawyer, George Messiers, actually phoned the Mac repair shop, John Paul Mac Isaac, who's the owner of that, on the evening that before the New York Post, we were running our first story, and asked for the laptop back. And he did that because we at the Post had reached out to George Messier and told him that we had the laptop. So that was the first that they realized.
Okay.
That it was going to be a problem for them.
Oh, yeah? So you've got the laptop. Rudy's got the laptop. And you haven't presented it. Why isn't it?
And I guess they panicked and phoned the Mac repair shop, give us back the laptop. And
how dare they?
John Paul
and he said, no, I sold it.
Mac Isaac was wise enough not to fall for that. But
to fall for it? What do you mean fall for it?
We should actually point out what a hero he is. Sorry, yes.
Just to show people, this is one of about 8, including ones with his signature that have been matched. The reality is, from the very beginning, it was his, but I was accused of, and you were accused of, using material.
Of getting a hold of an actual laptop, going to Ukraine, coming back with data, putting it on the laptop, and using that after the whole stealing it from Abloh didn't work.
Material we got from the Russians, using material that was hacked.
Yeah, all still true.
Using stolen material. And
all still true.
All of that was just a complete lie.
No, it isn't. Rudy, Booby, leave me your computer for 2 weeks, and I swear to God, when you get it back, there will be no added files.
To cover up this information.
And unlike you, I actually know how to cover up the metadata.
So that the American people wouldn't hear about this before they voted.
Why would that affect their vote? Why? What about this? Seriously. And by the way, this is the guy who defended Trump not showing his taxes.
It's about as cynical a conspiracy as you can get.
As cynical a conspiracy as you can get. Is it really?
This is a good time to take a short break.
Yeah, it's a good time to sell something.
I accomplished a lot.
No, you didn't. Hold on. Where is he? Let's go past this. Free gold and that kind of stuff. Okay, we're back.
With Miranda Devine. But let's get to...
Did you do that pickup later? Where'd the folder over here go? Why did a folder worth of information disappear during the show, Rudy?
The laptop. What? Tell us
remember, Biden has dementia.
The material that's there. Isn't there a pretty clear admission that Joe Biden was sharing in all of this? Particularly the document.
Really, the same fucking... We're going to talk about the same 6 pages?
Regarding the conspiracy or the business with the Chinese Communist Party members, where at the very bottom of the memo, which I think I see in front of me, it says 10% for the big guy.
Yes, we know. This is the same shit you've gone to every single time. And by no means can anyone who's had possession of a laptop for over a year and the password to get into it, which clearly the shop owner did, who somehow knew your lawyer, no one could ever get in there and type at the bottom of any email an extra sentence.
And now
10% to the big guy. That'll do it.
We're talking about a lot of money. This is like $1 million up front, $10 million a year for 3 years in order to make introductions. I imagine that's very well paid work. I didn't realize he got $10 million from making. I am now going to go into the making introductions business.
What do you mean now go into?
But isn't that about as clear as you can get that Joe was involved in it?
Yes, and it's look, the big guy we know from Tony Bobolinsky, who was Hunter's business partner. He
Yeah, the guy on the outs that got fired from Rosemont
came out
Seneca.
last year, handed over the contents of 3 of his phones with a lot of very damning material. A lot of it matched up with what's on the laptop.
A lot of it didn't, but we ignore that part.
He gave that.
Actually, a whole lot of it didn't. It was weird. The same emails on his phone, and you look at the emails on the laptop, and they don't match. So obviously, Hunter's has found some way to sneak into Dr. Ablow's office, get the keys to the laptop repair shop, sneak in there after dark, and change the emails in his laptop, and then pretend it isn't his.
That to the
It's all part of a big conspiracy.
FBI, and he confirmed that the big guy is Joe Biden, and that's further confirmed by many other documents on the laptop, emails, text messages, which refer explicitly to Joe Biden as the big guy. That seemed to be a just common way of talking about Joe Biden in communication with Hunter, the big guy. At one stage, one of the Burisma people, a foreigner, Vadim, described, I think it was someone else, a guy
Somebody else. It doesn't matter really.
called Vuk, described him as the big man. So big guy,
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a nickname, but it changes all the
big
time.
man, it's Joe Biden. And then there's another email or a text message that Hunter sends to one of his daughters at one point, and he's quite peeved.
This is the same shit we've heard before. You have access to the whole fucking hard drive, and you're talking about the same 6 pages these assholes have printed out. Seriously, the whole hard drive. Think about this. Think about how much criminality they're alleging is on this hard drive. And so far, we're fucking a year and a half into this horse shit, and he brings on someone new to talk over this story with him, and she's bringing up the same 6 printed pieces of paper. What the fuck are you talking about? If you don't have any, like, how do you have an email, like an entire hard drive full of someone's life? Do you know how many unanswered emails I have? Something like 45,000. Like, there's a ridiculous amount of information on my life in my emails. None of it's incriminating, unfortunately. I need a scandal someday. But you could figure out a shit ton of stuff. You get more than, if you were trying to, like, attack me on something, you could print out more than just this, I would imagine, from myriads of text messages with people over the years that's just stacked up in there. And at the end of this, you have a dude who's an admitted crack addict, and you keep going back to the same 6 printed pieces of paper that Rudy's held up?
About the demands for money from his kids, I guess. And he says, well, at least you're lucky. You don't have.
That's the same shit. Yeah, he's giving his money. His parents held onto it. They created a bank account for him so he wouldn't snort all of his money. They didn't keep it.
To give half your salary to Pop. And Pop is the name that Joe Biden's
Yeah, Big Pop, Big Man, Man Pop, Popsicle. There's like 1,000 names, but they're all the same guy.
Children used to call him. So Pop was getting 50% of Hunter's salary,
Holding on to it.
according to Hunter. And Hunter
And giving it back to him.
had been, according to Hunter, supporting the entire family for 30 years.
Why would you have to support the entire family if you're just the fucking bag man? Again, this goes against Rudy's entire narrative. Do you understand how stupid that sentence is? If you're the bag man, you don't view giving half your salary to the family. The bag man does not gripe about what the mafia boss does. Right? If the mafia boss is the reason the bag man is carrying the cash in the first place, he just shuts the hell up and goes, I get to keep half of this for doing fuck all. But if there's no mafia boss, and you're just, because you're rich, paying for relatives to go to school because they don't make the kind of money, your dad's vice president, and he doesn't have the kind of money it would take to send people to prep school, and your cousins and your everybody's coming out of the woodwork because Hunter's rich and asking you to pay for shit, you gripe about it. Yeah, that's right. Mary Green, drug addict supports whole family for 30 years.
So he is just explaining that he is the bag man for the Biden
Bag men don't own the money. Bag men don't bitch about giving up half the money.
family. He's the front man. He goes out, he monetizes the family name,
And what? Lives off a 50% commission?
doesn't do much, just waves the flag, sits on a board, is there. And we also know from the laptop how involved he was with his father. I mean, he would, people would come to him as if he were the sort of courtier in the court, and they would, there's a judge on there who goes to Hunter and says, look, would you mind putting my name forward, basically to your father, because I'd like to be elevated to the district court, and here's my CV. People were always
Yeah, but he didn't return. He didn't become one. Fucking hell. Your dad's vice president and you're responsible for people asking you for favors? It's only a crime if you start the favor part, or they come to you, I guess, and ask you for a favor, and you go and you create a quid pro quo. Seriously, like, we're gonna go with every time somebody asks you a favor, it's a crime? Wait 1 second. Hold on. So, what are we doing here? What are you doing here, Rudy? So you broom the Italian mob out of New York so the Russians and the Chinese can move in. And then your campaign gets a lift. Project much?
He's coming to Hunter and asking him to do favors for him, or get his father to do favors for him, basically.
And are they getting them?
Sometimes I think that got quite wearing for him. I mean, he often didn't answer his emails. He didn't answer his text messages. He'd just go AWOL, presumably on a drug bender.
So the corruption here is a judge asks for him to ask his dad for a favor to get a promotion, essentially, to get put on a circuit court, and Hunter never answers the email and goes and smokes crack. And that's a sign that Joe Biden is corrupt. What?
It was interesting with Burisma. I mean, he had very few duties, judging from the laptop. He talks in the book about how arduous these duties were, and that the $83,000 a month really wasn't out of kilter with normal Fortune 500
it isn't
payments to.
And do you think $83,000 a month investment banker guys do cocaine? Do you think that Hunter Biden is unique in this world?
Board members. In fact, it's 12 times the amount that board members in the US in a comparable sized company would make. I mean, they make about
What do you mean a comparable sized company? You get a percentage of the money that you are shepherding.
$83,000 a year, not per month. And
No. A 3-person company that has some staff that shepherds $1 billion of investment into Ukrainian oil and gas and has to watch it to make sure it gets spent right isn't going to make $83,000 a year. Do you want them bought off? Is that the goal? Do you want them to make so little money that anybody rolls through and go, you make $83,000 a year, I can give you $20,000 a month if you just make this go away?
And
that's about $1 million. That's about $1 million a year.
Weird. And how much money were they in charge of? How much money did they bring in to Burisma and had to babysit it to make sure it got spent? And each of the guys on the board made $1 million a year. Anybody want to guess? Somewhere in the order of $500 to $800 million in invested capital. So whoever's investing this is paying effectively $4 million a year to make sure that their $800 million doesn't vanish.
And also, Miranda, his partner.
Oh my God, Joyce, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Can't Stop Lying. Thank you. Happy Sexy Liberal 10th anniversary. Oh, that's very sweet. I'm very excited about you guys seeing the sketches this weekend, and I have lots more.
For a period of time until he got arrested and convicted, Devin Archer also was getting the same amount of money, and it was coming into the same firm. So if you want to look at it as the firm's income, they're making more like $170,000, $180,000 a month.
Right. Yeah. Everybody who works in the firm is doing the same job. They're all shepherding the same money. It's a commission.
And that gets closer to $2 million now.
No, it isn't. He doesn't get $2 million because the guys he works with get the other half of it. It's $3 million. You said he gets $1 million a year. He's on equal footing financially with the other people. Like how basic is this fucking math?
For the Biden business.
No. Hunter is if there's any Biden business in this, it's only Hunter. The other guys don't give money to Joe Biden for the chance to work at Burisma. What are you talking about? Where's those emails? You have that other guy's phone. Where's the emails from his phones that he gave up that he has to give 50% or 10% of what he makes to Joe Biden? Are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah. Well, and later on, Hunter actually got the money siphoned not into the business account, but into his own account. So,
and there's also, and I've used this in podcasts in the past. There's also,
it's nothing's original.
A transaction in February of 2016 where they get an additional $3 million laundered to them.
And laundered to them. Laundered. It's laundered. Is it laundered, Rudy?
And if you match up those records with the records of Devin Archer's trial, you see the $3 million coming into the firm. But it doesn't come directly in. It goes from Ukraine to Latvia to Cyprus, and then Cyprus. And it's all, this one transaction lays it all out. So
well, then create a chart and show us, asshole. You can't just bring that shit up and go, yeah, just trust me. The money bounced all over the fucking place. $3 million was spent here. $3 million. What about the $900 that Matt Getz sent to Joel Greenberg, and then Joel Greenberg paid 3 teenage girls $300 a piece the next morning, and Matt Getz names one of the girls in his Venmo?
The question I have for you
is why edit that?
This is kind of a silly question, but at least
I have no doubt.
Leads to something. If you were an FBI agent, wouldn't you jump out of your seat when you saw that and say, "Oh well, we've got a subpoena. We got a subpoena now. His records, both records. Joe has 5 houses, I think. He has 5 homes. That's a lot of homes for a senator. And
he's not a senator. He's a vice president, and he and his wife are millionaires because he wrote a book and
school teacher. According to him, very likely he paid for some of those.
Well, then they're his houses. So Joe doesn't have 5 houses.
I have seen records that he paid for the tuition of one of the daughter.
Yes, we've seen that shit too. So let me guess. $1 billion in Chinese funds, the huge Biden crime family, and your gotcha is that Hunter Biden paid school tuition for one of the relatives?
Daughter, Joe and Jill's daughter. So records would tell you how much he paid for. Yet the FBI not only never investigated, they never even took a step to look at this.
Why would they look at someone paying, if they're obviously a millionaire, and they pay, how much was the tuition? 40 grand?
What's wrong? What? These are obvious either crimes or highly incriminating facts.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know why people don't look into obvious crimes and highly incriminating facts more often. I don't know why. Let's see. I did a lot of fundraising for Giuliani. other campaign beneficiaries. I mean, there's a lot elaborate scam. That's a all of a sudden there's Russian money flying into New York because Rudy Giuliani broomed out the Italian mob. Weird.
I did this work for 18 years.
Well, you did the work of the Russian mob for 18 years.
I couldn't possibly have passed this up. It would have been a dereliction of duty.
To your Russian handlers.
What's going on?
Well, I mean, it's extraordinary. And, you know, in our discussions previously, you've pointed out just.
Yeah, it does bring up something else, though. Let's say, let's go to a time when Rudy was mayor, or was a prosecutor. And let's see. You know, you'd have to look into this stuff. Let's see. You would have to look into financial transactions that are incredibly sketchy, obviously. That in terms of during the period where Rudy Giuliani was in charge of, was the DA and was looking into the mob and all this kind of stuff, and then became mayor. And it's just weird that, all these guys are rolling money all around, and then all of a sudden, I don't know why, paid the largest fine ever levied against the casino for having willfully violated anti-money laundering rules. And that wouldn't be a red flag to you, Rudy, during that time when you were actually, like, not now, you're obviously, semi-retired, wart on Trump's ass, but during that time you could have done something about it, in theory.
Just as extraordinarily, when Devon Archer, Hunter's business partner, was arrested and then convicted over this fraud to do with ripping off Indian pension funds from Indian reservations, Native American tribes. You would think that
you would think that if they had anything on Hunter Biden, he would have used some of that to soften his conviction, and yet he never did. That's weird.
Prosecutors would try and milk him, try and come to some sort of an accommodation with him, get information with him about Hunter. Somehow Hunter, who was involved in that business, that Burnham business, and actually received around $500,000 from it, at least, that we can find.
Well, at least.
On the laptop.
It's on the laptop. I see. It's not in financial records that you can get from the case, from the laptop. That's weird. So we'll just trust that it's on the laptop, but not anywhere else.
And was an executive director of it, intimately involved in meetings and planning for it.
Well, when he wasn't high on crack, obviously.
Escaped,
not answering emails.
Scot-free. There was nothing at all that was pinned on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Paul.
Him. He was not regarded as being part of this business. And 3 of his partners ended up getting convicted. 2 are in jail. And Devon Archer is awaiting sentencing. He managed somehow, even though his case didn't look any different from the other 2, he somehow managed to get a judge to order a retrial. So he seems to be skating along, getting the kid glove treatment. Not quite as kid glove as Hunter Biden, but still pretty good. And as you have asked,
again, we're still going on same 6 fucking pages.
Why was he not leaned on to provide information about Hunter?
Well, maybe he was and he had none.
Yeah, I mean, there are 1,000 questions.
Like Hunter? What are you talking about? Hunter's a crack addict. He's not in charge of anything. I ran the whole thing. Like, how do you think that question gets answered?
That emerged from this hard drive. And
the criminal genius crackhead who pays for houses his dad's own, but he still manages to own them, who is the bag man for the family, but complains about paying for everything.
Pretty clear, straight out crimes. The one that's hardly the serious most serious, but one that is so easy for people to understand is the situation with the 38 revolver.
Really? That story again? The one is while he was addicted, his sister-in-law throws out because she's worried he's going to do himself in.
Hunter buys himself a handgun, and he puts down on the form. The form is a federal form. Everyone has to fill it out. The left wing makes, this is currently their biggest issue. Gun control and guns not being in the hands of people who are mentally disturbed, criminals or addicts.
No. Obviously mentally disturbed. If someone's an addict or a former addict, that's a different thing altogether.
Well, you got one. You got one to prosecute. Joe's son goes in and fills out that he's not involved with drugs. No. And isn't there a picture of him?
He's not involved with drugs? Is there a question on there? Like, how close are we talking? Do you like drugs? Yes. Yes, but do you like drugs?
A few days earlier with that crack pipe?
Yes, 8 days before he signed that firearms registration form, swearing that he was not an addict and that he had never taken illicit drugs.
By the way, every gun owner who smoked pot, after you.
He was photographed asleep with a meth pipe, a crack pipe in his
I mean, what's the difference really? A meth pipe, a crack pipe, it's all the same.
mouth. He was fresh off. That was the middle of a bender. That was the year he even admits in his book, and we know on
Wait, he admits in the book?
his laptop, he was completely out of control.
If he was completely out of control, how was he in charge of bilking Indian tribes out of their pensions and running a massive underground money running scheme?
He was by his own admission, he was smoking crack every 15 minutes because it's
Every 15
only
minutes.
a very short high.
That seems difficult.
And,
Is it a puff pass to yourself?
And that
every 15 minutes. That's worse than waking up in the middle of the night to feed a baby.
that was the time when he decided he was going to buy a gun. He bought it, I think, on October 12 of 2018. And on October 23 of 2018, his then partner, lover, Hallie, who was also his brother's widow, with whom he was living, took the gun and threw it in a trash can outside a market in Delaware. And she did so at the time, she said, because she was concerned about him and his volatility and his welfare, but also the welfare of her children, because they lived with their two children. Now, Hunter has changed that since to say, oh, she was worried about me committing suicide.
Yeah, I think it's kind of all of that. Yeah.
I think she was worried about a lot of things, and it wasn't just suicide.
Well, she didn't say it was just suicide. These are two people who were fucking. They were in a relationship together. But please tell me what you think they were thinking.
And so Hunter Biden somehow managed to skate free on that.
Oh my God. Normally I would do this whole thing, but this is so goddamn tiresome. Again, it's not my fault if they anchor with some sort of big reveal or la-la at the end, because I have to sit through all the same shit that we've been talking about for the last year. Oh, God. Yeah, every 15 minutes means you'd be dead in a couple of hours. Oh, God, this is so stupid.